Hi, everyone. Are you ready for me to ask you a question? Are you listening? Here it comes. Does the date 1848 mean anything to you? It doesn't? Well, it should. It was the date of the Seneca Falls Convention. You're saying, really? What is that? Well, I'm glad you asked. It's like this. It was the day, a July day in 1848, where a group of women got together and decided it was time to do something for women's rights. The Seneca Falls Convention was also known as the Women's Rights Convention. Now, what could have sparked that? Well, nothing but a bunch of stupid customs that have been going on for 100 years or more, treating women like second-class citizens, the fact they didn't have the right to own property, the fact that they couldn't get the same amount of money as men, the fact that they couldn't keep their own money, the fact they couldn't vote, etc., etc., etc. Well, it's funny because what really, that all added to it. But the thing that really got everything going was something that happened across the pond, as they say, in London a few years earlier. In 1840, there was a conference in London for it was an anti-slavery convention. And the following ladies, Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Lucretia Mott, were attending that conference with their husbands. And when they tried to get on the convention floor, they were refused because they were women. And those two ladies said, enough is enough. So a few years later, in Elizabeth Stanton's home in Seneca Falls, she, along with Lucretia, Martha Wright, Mary Ann McClintock, and Jane Hunt, organized a very, very successful convention. In fact, one thing that's remembered from the convention is the ad, excuse me, that was put into the newspaper, Seneca Falls Courier, that announced the convention. Let me read that to you. A convention to discuss the social, civil, and religious conditions and rights of women will be held in the Wesleyan Chapel at Seneca Falls, New York, on Wednesday and Thursday, the 19th and 20th of July current, commencing at 10 a.m. during the first day. The meeting will be exclusively for women, okay, who are earnestly invited to attend. The public generally are invited to be present at the second day, when Lucretia Mott of Philadelphia and other ladies and gentlemen will address the convention. And by the way, the famous editor Frederick Douglass was also in attendance there. Now, you say, so was that important? Absolutely. The whole thing was important. Why? Because, well, you know how it is at conventions. You get together, you hear speeches, you have people sharing their ideas, but usually some news is made. And in that convention, some real news was made. They wrote up what you might call a declaration. A declaration, as they called it, of the sentiments and grievances. Declaration of sentiments and grievances. Very similar to the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men and women are created equal. You'll notice they put in the word women along with men. See, that was the thing that kind of really stirred things up, and it got even more potent when they did the following. They went ahead and declared that the women had 12 special rights, equal rights, which included the right to own property. You can understand, women did not own property in those days. They were declaring that they had the right to own property. Now, here's another thing. 11 of these rights voted on unanimously. The right to property, no problem. The one right that got the opposition, there was one that had opposition, was the women's right to vote. Can you believe that? The women's right to vote. In fact, it wasn't until 1920, 70 years later, that an amendment to the Constitution was voted in, the 19th Amendment, that gave the women the right to vote. Pretty shocking, huh? Anyway, let's go further. So they had that voted in. Well, this tells you how tough the situation was. Now, at that convention, the numbers suggest that anywhere from 200 to 300 women were present. Pretty good. That's a nice number for an event like that. At that same convention, Lucretia Mott said some words that, shall we say, may go down in history. Let me read to you some of what she said. Some of what she said. We are assembled to protect against a form of government existing without the consent of the governed, to declare our right to be free as men is free, to be represented in the government which we are taxed to support, to have such disgraceful laws as give man the power to chastise and imprison his wife, to take their wages which she earns, the property which she inherits, and in case of separation, the children of her love. Yeah, some pretty potent words. And you know what? It made a big difference. It was the spark. It got the ball rolling down the mountain. 2 weeks later, they had another meeting in Rochester, which is even bigger. And ever since, they've been having marches and meetings. And, well, you know the rest of the story, I think. Anyway, there you have it. Seneca Falls. The first women's convention. The Women's Rights Convention. And America is still, to this day, feeling the impact. Have a great